Scientists round the world are acting on potential treatments and vaccines for the new coronavirus disease called COVID-19. Several companies are acting on antiviral drugs, a number of which are already in use against other illnesses, to treat those who have already got COVID-19. Other companies are acting on vaccines that might be used as a protection against the disease. With confirmed COVID-19 cases worldwide surpassing 4.3 million and continuing to grow, scientists are pushing forward with efforts to develop vaccines and coverings to slow the pandemic and lessen the disease's damage. Some of the earliest treatments will likely be drugs that are already approved for other conditions, or are tested on other viruses. People are looking into whether existing antivirals might work or whether new drugs may be developed to tackle the virus, said Dr. Bruce Y. Lee, a professor at the CUNY Grad School of Public Health and Health Policy. As of May 8, 3 medications trusted source had received Emergency Use Authorization (EUA) from the Food and Drug Administration (FDA), the anti-malaria drugs chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, the antiviral remdesivir, and a drug wont to sedate people on a ventilator. An EUA allows doctors to use these drugs to treat people with COVID-19 even before the medications have older the formal FDA approval process. In mid-May, the tiny biotech company, Sorrento Therapeutics, announced it's an antibody drug that has been effective in early testing in blocking the virus that causes COVID-19. They assert the drug could potentially be wont to treat people with COVID-19 yet as help prevent infection. These drugs are still being tested in clinical trials to work out if they're effective against COVID-19. This step is required to create sure the medications are safe for this particular use and what the correct dosage should be. So it may be months before treatments are available that are known to figure against COVID-19. It may be even longer for a vaccine. But there are still other tools we will use to scale back the damage done by the novel coronavirus. Even though technological advances allow us to try and do certain things more quickly, Lee told Healthline, we still should depend on social distancing, contact tracing, self-isolation, and other measures. Treatamon antivirals remdesivir developed a decade ago, this drug failed in clinical trials against Ebola in 2014. But it absolutely was found to be generally safe in people. Research with MERS showed that the drug blocked the virus from replicating. The drug is being tested in many COVID-19 clinical trials around the world. This includes studies during which remdesivir is being administered alongside other drugs, like the anti-inflammatory baricitinib trusted source. In late April, the drug's manufacturer Gilead Sciences announced one among its trials had been terminated because of low enrollment. Gilead officials said the results of that trial had been inconclusive when it absolutely was ended. A few days later, the corporate announced that preliminary data from another trial of remdesivir overseen by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases (NIAID) had met its primary endpoint. Dr. Anthony Fauci, trusted source, the institute's director, told reporters the trial produced a clear-cut positive effect in diminishing time to recover. He said people taking the drug recovered from COVID-19 in 11 days compared to 15 days for those who didn't take remdesivir. More details are released after the trial is peer-reviewed and published. Gary Schwitzer, founding father of HealthNewsReview.org, though, said that the researchers changed the first endpoint time period before Fauci's announcement. Schwitzer compared that to moving football goalposts closer to create it easier to induce a touchdown. At the identical time, another study trusted source published within The Lancet reported that participants in an exceedingly run who took remdesivir showed no benefits compared to those who took a placebo. Despite the conflicting results, the FDA issued an order trusted source on May 1 for the emergency use of remdesivir. Kaletra. This is a mixture of two drugs, lopinavir and ritonavir, that job against HIV. Clinical trials are being done to work out whether it also works against SARS-CoV-2. One small study published May 4 within the journal Med by Cell Press found that lopinavir-ritonavir failed to improve outcomes in people with mild or moderate COVID-19 compared to those receiving standard care. Another study, published May 7 within the Geographical Region Journal of Medication, found that the drug combination wasn't effective for people with severe COVID-19. But another study found that folks who got lopinavir, ritonavir together With two other drugs, ribavirin and interferon beta-1b, took less time to clear the virus from their body. This study was published trusted source May 8 within The Lancet. Favipiravir. This drug is approved in some countries outside the US to treat influenza. Some reports from China suggest it's going to work as a treatment for COVID-19. These results, though, haven't been published yet. Japan, where the medication is formed, is sending the drug to 43 countries for run testing in people with mild or moderate COVID-19. Arbutal. This antiviral was tested together with the drug lopinavir, ritonavir as a treatment for COVID-19. Researchers reported in mid-April that the two drugs didn't improve the clinical outcomes for people hospitalized with mild to moderate cases of COVID-19. Vaccines. A vaccine is intended to shield people before they're exposed to an epidemic, during this case, SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. A vaccine basically trains the immune system trusted source to acknowledge and attack the virus when it encounters it. Vaccines protect both the person who's vaccinated and therefore the community. Viruses can't infect those who are vaccinated, which suggests vaccinated people can't pass the virus to others. This is often called herd immunity. Many groups trusted source are engaged on potential vaccines for SARS-CoV-2, with several backed by the nonprofit Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations (CEPI). There are over 100 projects trusted source round the world centered on the event of a vaccine for the coronavirus. As of May 11, 8 candidate vaccines were being tested in clinical trials in people. An official at the National Institutes of Health said in mid-May that large-scale testing could begin in July with a vaccine potentially available by January. Other experts say the more likely timeline is summer or fall of 2021. Here's a glance at a number of the projects. Moderna. In March, the corporate began testing its RNA-mRNA vaccine in an exceedingly trial, Phase 1, clinical trial in Seattle, Washington. The study includes 45 healthy volunteers, ages 18 to 55, who are becoming 2 shots 28 days apart. The corporate has developed other mRNA vaccines before. Those earlier studies showed that their platform is safe, which allowed the corporate to skip certain animal testing for this specific vaccine. In early May, the corporate received permission from the FDA to begin a Phase 2 clinical trial study of its vaccine. The corporate expects to begin a clinical test, Phase 3, clinical trial in early summer. The FDA also agreed to fast-track regulatory review of this vaccine if it succeeds in an exceedingly clinical test, Phase 3, clinical trial. Inovio. When COVID-19 appeared in December, the corporate had already been engaged on a DNA vaccine for MERS, which is caused by another coronavirus. This allowed the corporate to quickly develop a possible vaccine for SARS-CoV-2. Company officials announced at the top of April that it had enrolled 40 healthy volunteers in its trial, Phase 1, clinical trial. It's preparing to begin a Phase 2/3 trial this summer. University of Oxford in England. A trial with over 500 participants began in late April. Oxford officials said the potential vaccine has an 80% chance for achievement and will be available as early as September. The vaccine uses a modified virus to trigger the system. The university has partnered with company AstraZeneca. The corporate reported in mid-May the vaccine was effective against COVID-19 after it had been given to 6 rhesus macaque monkeys. The corporate expects to start a late-stage trial by the center of this year. University of Queensland in Australia. Researchers are developing a vaccine by growing viral proteins in cell cultures. They began preclinical testing stages in early April. Pharmaceutical companies Johnson & Johnson and Sanofi are both engaged on a vaccine of their own. Pfizer has also teamed up with a German company to develop a vaccine. Their initial trial with 200 participants was given the green light in late April. The two companies began human testing within the US in early May. Advances in genetic sequencing and other technological developments have sped up a number of the sooner laboratory work for vaccine development. However, Fauci told reporters in March that a vaccine won't be available for widespread use for a minimum of another 12 to 18 months. This is the timeline to finish the Phase 3 clinical studies. Fauci wrote within the journal Science in May that multiple successful vaccines is also needed to fulfill the demand of vaccinating billions of individuals worldwide. Speeding up vaccine development. Some scientists argue that a human challenge trial could speed up the vaccine clinical trials, potentially shaving months off the timeline. In this style of trial, healthy volunteers are given a possible vaccine so intentionally infected with the coronavirus. Usually, researchers stay up for an individual given a test vaccine to contract the virus naturally. Then they appear at how well the person was protected by the vaccine. There aren't any plans for this sort of study within the US, but over 16,000 people in additional than 100 countries have signed up to require part. A human challenge trial raises many ethical questions. One is that there's still plenty we don't fathom the coronavirus, including who will get very ill or die from COVID-19. That means people can't really know the risks of participating within the study, in order that they wouldn't be ready to give high-quality consent. This can be an important part of modern clinical trials. Given the scope of the pandemic, though, some experts think this sort of trial will happen eventually. In preparation for this, the Globe Health Organization recently released ethical guidelines to navigate these tricky waters. Meanwhile, some clinical trials are underway within the Netherlands and Australia to work out whether existing vaccines for tuberculosis may additionally protect against SARS-CoV-2. The polio vaccine is another possible option. Scientists think these vaccines might boost the system barely enough to oppose the new coronavirus, although there's no evidence yet to verify this theory. There's no guarantee any of the vaccine candidates will work. There's plenty of uncertainty with vaccine development, Lee said. Naturally, you've got to form sure the vaccine is safe. But you furthermore should ensure the vaccine will elicit enough of an reaction. Like drugs, potential vaccines should undergo the identical trial stages. Trusted source. This can be especially important when it involves safety, even during a virulent disease. The public's willingness to back quarantines and other public health measures to slow spread tends to correlate with what quantity people trust the government's health advice. Shibo Zhang, a virologist at Fudan University in China, wrote within the journal Nature. Trusted source. A rush into potentially risky vaccines and therapies will betray that trust and discourage work to develop better assessments, he said. Vaccine from China is expected in end of July 2020 and Oxford vaccine is expected in the market in September 2020 beside other vaccines from several pharmaceutical companies expected to be launched between September and December 2020.